Vincenzo's Go Crypto Investing this August 2nd, 2025, and we got some breaking news. You can see key factors in today: 700 million in longs liquidated, while Bitcoin accounted for about 200 million with market volatility, right? As everybody was loading up on longs, and then the price comes down and they're not loading up on longs, they're leveraging on longs. So you have a slight consolidation and you have nearly $1 billion liquidated. And you can see this might now be threatening to not want to pump to the upside. So we got to watch now. We're down at the 50-day moving average, our first area of support with the Bitcoin price, as we had a big fall yesterday. Now what you want to watch this weekend in the Bitcoin price, as we got to get to a birthday party for the nephew, is you want to hold this 200-day moving average in the daily time frame, right? And if you don't hold that 50-day moving average in the daily time frame, you know your secondary and your pattern support is this purple or lower support of this rising channel that's been in effect ever since the 2022 low from the mountain double top of the COVID previous all-time high back then, right? So that's what you're watching. You're at the 112,928 now. You can see it with the red dot. And if you can't hold this, which you would normally see here is a bounce, you would expect technically on a basic technical rule to see a bounce here, right? And at least a bounce of a few percent back up like this, right? You would expect to see a bounce, even if it's going to come down to the 100-day moving average next or the uptrending of the rising channel. Usually you see a slight reactionary bounce off of buyers being at a technical level of a moving average, right? Like the 50-day moving average. So that's something that's very interesting, and that's something that we're following right there. And we're going to see if that does hold and have a bounce the rest of this weekend, or it trades sideways along it and then actually comes down to the next level, which is 107,754.97 cents in the short term at the 100-day moving average. And obviously, to stay bullish, you want to stay above in the short term this 50-day moving average, and for long term, this pattern support that we were just talking about in the Bitcoin price that you can see goes all the way back here to late 2022 into 2023 as we rounded the bottom after the mountain double top from the COVID capitulation right there, and then the COVID pump had the mountain double top, hit the technical target, and you've been in this rising channel ever since. That kind of looks like our turtle pattern that we talk about. It's a turtle bullish continuation pattern, but a bearish reversal pattern at a massive scale on steroids, where you see you come up and then you come down and you kind of got the turtle shell, and then you got the turtle's elongated and overextended neck, right? Or the conveyor belt, that's the rising channel, and eventually, usually, almost probability base wise, they usually break to the downside. So that's what we're watching out in the short term, and that's the long term what we're watching out for, this rising channel. Does it just continue in it, break out of it to the upside and go to 300,000, or does it actually have a big capitulation to the downside of a normal textbook bear market after it tops out? And then we have to look at it maybe being the catalyst for an even bigger economic collapse, because it has infiltrated now and is not just a sector by itself that is segregated. It is integrated into the U.S. and the world financial system now via major companies and corporations borrowing against their own public stock to buy Bitcoin, which means they face bankruptcy and liquidation risk if the price of Bitcoin ever went down below what they borrowed the price at long enough to where they started getting margin called, right? And all these companies, there's hundreds of companies, big companies, Fortune 500 companies that are doing this. So if anything ever went, a lot of them are doing it at 100,000. That's why I'm saying this could cause a major financial and economic collapse across the world, because it's not isolated to just Bitcoin and people trading crypto. It is the Bitcoin on any kind of 50 or 60 or 70% dump below 60 grand would have liquidations and a catastrophic feedback on itself of people being liquidated and forced sell Bitcoin, which would exacerbate the dump to the downside, and then triggering more liquidations and more forced sells because bank loans are being called, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years with Bitcoin. As now, is it too big to fail? Is it just going to be like in the other asset classes with Bitcoin? Like the rest of the stocks, where the Fed and the government will just continue pumping it because so many corporations and institutions now have borrowed and bet the farm that Bitcoin will never go down and will just continue to inflate along with inflation and other assets, right? It's going to be very interesting. You can see Ethereum is at a big rejection just below the megaphone neckline. You can see if we go into the daily time frame, it's sitting on the 3483 or just below it right now, and that's the area that you have to hold, because if you don't, you're going to come initially to the 50-day moving average, which is just above the 3059 or the bottom part of this green trading zone, and the medium term pattern, which is a rising channel that you've been in ever since April. You can see that right there. And right now, this is a healthy correction, just like you had here, what you're doing right now. But if you can't hold this 3483, you would come down to that 50-day moving average in the daily at 3151. And then you can see the 200-day is running just below the 100-day, which is running just below that local pattern support since April, the rising channel. So in the short term, you want to get back on top of the 3483 to try to make another run at the $4,053 up here, or else if you stay below this, which you are currently now, you can see the red dotted line, you run the risk of coming back down to initial support at 33.31 and then your major support at 3,059, right? If we go into the XLM, it's the same thing as we talked about yesterday, and you're actually now almost down to where we said it would come down to like a magnet if it confirmed below the 43 cents, which it did now in the daily. And you can see now you would expect some kind of a bounce on the 36 cents, the top part of this green trading zone, and or the 50-day moving average, which is just above it or along it. The 100-day moving average is near the bottom part of that trading zone, and the 200-day is just below the 31 cents or the bottom part of that green box. And so you've been short-term bearish because you're below 43 cents, and now you're looking at to try to stay medium-term bullish by bouncing off the 36 cents, because if you slip the 36 cents, it'll act like a magnet down to 31 cents. So this is a critical spot for XLM. Can you hold this 36 cents and the 50-day moving average? Or are you going to fall into this green trading zone and come all the way back down to the 31 cents? This is going to be very interesting, because this is going to be very interesting for the macro. Is this just a fake out pump? And before you know it, we're going to be back at this 18 cents, which was a target that we almost hit, and potentially a golden accumulation zone of 7 to 14 cents? Or is this just a quick sell-off profit taking before we move up and reattack the 43 cents and move to the 55? But it's all critical to know, and we'll be told the story here in the next several days to weeks. If we hold this 36 cents and the 50-day moving average moving along to the XRP, you can see it had a big fall, something that we knew it would do if it fell below the 307 major support. Now it's coming just above the 50-day moving average, and if you don't hold the 50-day moving average like we were talking about when it was back up here at about 320 and back up there at 360, if you fell through the 307 to 255 would act as a major magnet, because if it gets below the 255, you're immediately short-term bearish, and then you're looking to come back to the 209 neckline support. And as we know, the 209 neckline support now, the head and shoulders pattern is null and void now, because you didn't hit the target. You got to $1.61, didn't get to $1.28 or $1.29 target, and you made a new high before. So that's invalid. But the neckline remains the same, and you say, Vincenzo, how could that be if the pattern's been invalidated? Great question, subscribers, and that's another reason the bell notification. Become members of Jabroni Killers is simple and as cheap as $3.99 a month to help support the channel. Because if you look at what you have here, you have top one now, and then you had a bottom, and then you ran up and made a slight new high. And if you have top two, this 209 now becomes a mountain double top in the macro time frame over a 8-month period, becomes the new neckline, right, for that. And that's something that I'm watching, because that could very well be what's going on. And what's very interesting, if you went from the top of that, if you go from the top of that, come on, the top of this, bear with me here, we're having technical difficulties, to the neckline, to the point of a breakout, look where that gets you. That's funny. It gets you right back down to the same $1.19 to the $1.29. It gets you back to that target, and that is something that we're going to watch, and that's a new target, $1.19, that we're going to put on there. Not saying it's going there, but this is something in the macro time frame over the short to medium term now we're going to watch to see if these tracks that accurately that we should have been more bullish on and called this mountain double top and seen it and been the pattern before it happened. They showed them all in the mean here going to the upside. See that all in the background? Now look what they show over the next 3 to 4 months. They show a nice consolidation in a bear market going into 2026 before you level out, and then you start, conveniently enough, next June and July, the next leg of the bull market, the end game of this current bull market that we're in, before what I thought we would have as a mid-ground consolidation. So this is going to be very interesting, and this is heightens the importance of you guys subscribing, sharing this, helping the movement grow far and wide, so we can become asset millionaires together with gold and silver bullion and mining stocks, steady 401k investing, cryptocurrencies or real estate, cash on the side for emergencies, earning 3 to 5% in CDs or short-term bonds. For emergencies, buying a new or accumulating into an existing asset. Peace and love. Jay, the Rock's Eyebrow.